One of my favorite times of the week. Time to get together with all of you to talk Hawkeyes football right here at the Voice of College Football. We do appreciate you stopping by. Settle in for the next 60 and leave your comments and questions there in the chat. It's Hawkeyes Live number 199. Corey Bratta right next to me, of course, from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Corey, first week of June. And so I got to think that the weather is in a good place there in the great state of Iowa.
Yes and no. We got rain today, which is probably not a bad thing. We got a lot of rain here a week and a half ago, probably a little too quickly, but it's been dry since, and so this is a nice steady rain. The problem has been the smoke from the Canada fires. Has just these last 3 to 4 days has created unfavorable conditions, weather conditions, air conditions. So we have an air not pollution, but air quality alert out right now. And so that's unfortunate. Everybody stay safe. If you got asthma, got to be careful with this stuff. Yeah, hey, next month we got Big Ten Media Days. I remember last year I said that, and right as soon as we hit June, I'm like, next month we get Big Ten Media Days. So it's going to be here before you know it. Back, we had official visits here recently, last few days with some football recruits, and we got some kickoff times. So that's a way to kick off a new month, no pun intended.
Yeah, we will look at some recruiting folks over the next portion of time for the remainder of the show. And again, the kickoff times, and we get a little fun that we're going to poke at our Nebraska friends as well. But let's start with these kickoff times as announced by the Big Ten a few days ago. And if I have this right in my head, I believe that the first 3 weeks of the season has been determined, and then we still have yet to see anything past that. So let's get to the kickoff times in the Big Ten, of course, focusing on Iowa. So as it stands right now, starting with week 1, we've got some Thursday night matchups involving
this is good
Big
to
Ten
see.
teams.
I hadn't looked at all of them. I just look at Iowa. So this is good to see the schedule in full, and that the Big Ten is taking advantage of week 1, those early slots.
The Big Ten better be careful right out of the gate here, Corey. Rutgers taking on Ohio University team that is always competitive in the MAC. They beat Iowa State, as you well know, a couple of years ago.
Iowa State. The only difference was Iowa State was stupid, and they went on the road and played them. So at least Rutgers, now I don't know if this is a home and home, but at least this game's in Piscataway. Dangerous Bobcat team. That will be the game of the night if it wasn't for Nebraska-Cincinnati, because that's another intriguing matchup on that's a lot of Thursday stuff. I mean, those are some good matchups.
Yeah, they really are. Of course,
Miami, Ohio
key matchups, but yeah, in context, I totally agree.
Miami, Ohio has been a good MAC program.
Yes,
Buffalo's not always a good program, but they've been solid.
They were last year.
What were they last year? Yeah, those are good. That's 4 good matchups, and I could I could see a couple of upsets in there. I wouldn't be shocked.
I said the same thing the other day when I pulled this up. I said, man, this is a rough go for the Big Ten. Now, obviously, the Big Ten's going to be a substantial favorite in all of these games, although, again, so the angle with Ohio football, the Bobcats, is that they have been one of the premier programs in the MAC. However, Tim Albin, their head coach, there was some kind of contract situation, and he left. Can't remember where he went. Somewhere down south. Stayed in the group of 5, but he's had a heck of a run at Ohio, so I do not recall who replaced him. And again, Buffalo was strong last year at 9-4. I was picking on Nebraska, and now this has nothing to do with what we're going to lead into later in the show, where I was also, again, in another way picking on Nebraska, but I posted a video. I just kind of went on a impromptu rant on Nebraska because they're only a 7-point favorite in this game against Cincinnati. And we know that Nebraska, albeit under a different coaching staff, has blown games against Illinois and Northwestern in week 0 in the last few seasons as substantial favorites. And only a touchdown against Cincinnati. I don't know that Vegas is showing a whole lot of respect and expectation for Nebraska, because Cincinnati would be a 3 to 4 touchdown underdog against a handful of teams in the Big Ten.
Okay, first of all, that game is being played at Arrowhead.
Yes.
So I mean, it's going to be packed with Nebraska fans. I can't imagine there's going to be even close to half full of
Oh,
Bearcat fans. And it's not going to
yeah.
be full. I would be shocked, and maybe Nebraska fans will make me eat my words. If they pack out the Arrowhead Stadium, I'll be shocked. Well, how did that game get scheduled at Arrowhead? Do you know the
I
background
don't
of
know
that?
the backs. I know the beginning of the backstory was that it was supposed to be in Indianapolis and considered a home game for Cincinnati,
Okay,
which it still is, I
gotcha.
guess.
Okay, that
Which
makes.
is
I
ridiculous.
was
I
wondering
don't
that.
know what I don't know what happened, that there was some kind of conflict that they had to move it.
I'm wondering. So this is an off-topic question, but it sort of relates to our discussion on TV times and kickoff times, all this stuff. So, like the Big Ten has this contract with Fox and NBC and CBS, so they're basically devoid of ESPN totally now.
Yes.
So my question is, in the out of this may be a dumb question, but in the out of conference, from a contractual stuff, can they schedule games, home games on like an ESPN? Do they have rights to try to grab those games?
The home
Like,
games go to the home network.
so
So
it
you're
does
still
it.
going to see Big Ten teams playing on ESPN, but they've got to be road games.
I guess that's what I was saying. So when I saw Nebraska Cincinnati, I'm like, okay, so they're considering that either a neutral game or an away game. And two things from a locale standpoint, it's not an away game for Nebraska. That's just stupid. Second of all, so why schedule it if you're Cincinnati? I would never have agreed to go to Arrowhead. That's just dumb. Now, it's not an NCAA tournament resume, right? It's not like NCAA tournament thing is totally like you got to be very. I asked Ben McCollum this question when he got hired at Iowa. You have to be very pointed and exact with now with the different criteria and the quads. You know, they have the quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, quad 4 games. You got to be careful of who you're playing on the road. You got to be careful of who you're playing on a neutral site. Iowa was really smart with Fran McCaffrey last year. Mark, they scheduled a neutral game in the Quad Cities, which is about an hour and a half away from Iowa City. Why on earth Washington State agreed to come to Moline, Illinois / Davenport, Iowa and play that game is beyond me. Sort of like going up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota and playing what is a de facto road game if you're Utah. And Iowa won both of those games. I think they won both of those. Did they beat Utah? I can't remember now. Who cares? But the point is, those were smart schedules. And so, if I'm Nebraska, man, if I can get you're saying that's a true road game for Nebraska?
Yes.
I mean, is a committee going to look at it that way because they use less computer analytics and numbers than the NCAA tournament committee does?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's
well, there are less games too.
There are less games, but
Right
I'm just
now.
saying I'm not saying Nebraska's going to be in a playoff conversation, but with the 12-team playoff, you never know. If Nebraska beats Cincinnati, are Husker fans going to be touting that as a road win? I mean, is that the stupidity we're talking about? I'm not trying to rip on Nebraska fans, but yeah, I mean that would be a weird situation if they had to point to a road win against Cincinnati when 3/4 of the stadium was Nebraska fans. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't because they traveled all that well. It was because it was 150 miles from Omaha.
Yeah, so we would not expect Cincinnati to win more than 4 or 5 games this year, most likely. So I don't know that it much matters. I think that this game, if Nebraska is in a playoff chase, could only more hurt them than help them, meaning they only win this game 21-17, that's going to be a detriment to their playoff hopes rather than if they win the game 34-3 that they beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, but I'm assuming I guess my point, I'm talking big picture. I'm assuming this is a home and home, right?
I don't know.
Excuse me, a home and away. Right? Like this is a series. They're going to be playing in Lincoln next year, I assume.
I don't know.
Okay. That just seems odd. If you're going to play on a neutral field, make it a neutral field game. If you want to schedule 2 in a row on a neutral field 2 years in a row, fine. But why, if you're in Cincinnati, either play a home game or don't.
Yeah, and for them to play in Indianapolis rather than Cincinnati,
Makes no
I
sense.
think it's a weak move by Cincinnati. If I'm reading it correctly, because I think they would make more money playing in Indianapolis, maybe filling up the stadium rather than playing at home in front of 30,000 people. But in that small stadium, having a true home field advantage and having it loud and raucous on your campus, would you not want that, Cincinnati?
Yeah, just to clarify what you just said, they're not selling out Lucas Oil Stadium with Bearcat fans if that game's being played in Indy.
True.
I mean, it's going to be probably half Nebraska fans, even in Indianapolis. That's why, yeah, I agree with you. That's sort of a dumb move, but hey, it's a strong early week slate, Thursday and Friday. Although Friday's, if you look at it as a whole, it's strong. Friday is a disaster. Like if the Big Ten was smart, they would have had like Ohio Rutgers on Friday or moved Nebraska Cincinnati to Friday.
Yeah.
Like Western Michigan, Michigan State's that's a ridiculous. Now Western Michigan, maybe they're better than. I don't know what Ohio State, what Michigan State. I think they're one of the more unpredictable programs in this conference. Week in and week out, they were last year. You know, what they did against Iowa and then how they finished the season. And then Western Illinois, ever since Don Patterson left Western, they are just one of the worst programs in Division I every single year. I mean, didn't they get throttled by Indiana like 73-0?
Yes.
Can we take a moment to just, I know I'm biased, but extend a level of appreciation and awe to what Don Patterson was able to do with that program. That program is a total disaster. It's a wreck. I mean, and he'll never say it, but it's a disgrace to him. I mean, I know he feels bad about it, but they can't, they went like 3 years without winning a game. I mean, I've never heard of anything quite like that.
And he left there when?
He left there. Don't ask me to, he left there in,
I know I looked it up at some point.
2009.
I don't remember.
Okay. Yep. So I don't know what I think they've pretty much been on a downward trend ever since. Let's see. 2000. Yeah. I mean, basically they've gotten worse every single year with the exception being a stretch between 15 and 17. They've been crap in basically every other year. So they struggled in 9. Don Patterson was sick. We don't need to get into all what happened there. They go 8-5 in 2010, then they go 2-9, 3-8, 4-8, 5-7, 7-6, 6-6, 8-4, 5-6, 1-11, 1-5, 2-9, 0-11, 0-11, and so they didn't go 3 straight years, but they went almost 3 straight years, and then 4-8 last year. So those are pretty rough.
I didn't expect us to talk about Western Illinois for now 2 or 3 minutes. We have a very odd flow of traffic in this show. Have you ever noticed this? I've not seen anything like this. So we have about 50 people watching right now. Okay. We usually have, I don't know, 150 or 160, something in that range watching. So we always have a late arriving crowd, which is typical, but I think even more so in this show. The people arrive late for some reason. We seem to advertise it. I posted on Twitter. You typically repost it. I'll even go on Facebook. I didn't this week. I forgot or whatever. Did not get onto Facebook. And what makes it even stranger is there are no comments.
Yeah, I saw that. None. I don't think I've ever seen a show where 15 minutes in, we haven't had a single you almost wonder if the live chat's broken.
But see, I was going to say, I thought I did notice that a few times recently where we're sitting here with 70 some people watching and nobody's commented.
Well, part of it is it is June. It is June. And have we driven some... there you go. Coil stipulate. Thank you. Maybe we've driven some people away with our discussions on burgers and Little Debbie's and Hostess and all this garbage that we spend talking about. And all of
that's going to dry up because I am going to have nothing to discuss when it comes to food because starting on June 1st, I'm going clean for at least 3 months consecutively.
So you have not ate anything dirty since June 1st? Since
no
May
processed
31st?
Foods.
Really? Good for you.
No.
I'm anxious to see how it makes you feel.
Now, leading into that, I went a full dozen of Krispy Kreme donuts that I ate in one day, a package of Oreos, 2 half gallons of ice cream. I got myself a Blizzard and a couple chili dogs right before the deadline.
Oh, dog. No pun intended.
Had some pizza, burgers, that sort of thing. Made the mistake of going to Steak and Shake, which their number one selection has always satisfied, and I went for like a melt.
Oh,
which looked like it should be really good, and I know you get those at Culver's, I believe.
Yep. And I get them at Freddy's.
This was a disaster.
Really?
Like it was so greasy, so saturated in grease and butter.
Yeah, that's not good.
that the outside of the plastic wrap was like had grease film. Like it was disgusting. Like it was so greasy it was falling apart.
Can I put a quick plug
Sure.
in for the? Let me put a quick plug in
Yeah.
for the Beef House. I've talked about the Beef
Okay.
House. This is football related because
Do they
Don.
sponsor you?
No, they don't sponsor
Okay.
me. I don't think they need sponsorship. I don't think they need advertising, Mark. They've been around forever. I remember Don Patterson he told me a story once on the air, and if people have heard this story before, I apologize. He told a story at least one time on the air where his teams would always stop at the Beef House, especially if they were traveling that direction. They were traveling east from Western Illinois. So they'd travel along the interstate there toward Indianapolis, and they would stop at the Beef House after the game. And the players loved it. And I remember specifically telling me about a story where his team wasn't playing well. And he went into halftime, and one of the things he said to his team was, well, I guess we don't have to stop at the Beef House on the way home. And I kid you not, they came back in the second half, played better, and won. But that's a true story. But the reason I bring that up is the Beef House is infamous outside of Covington, Indiana. And I stopped there on the way to Columbus here a few weeks ago. And they have a really good lunch menu. They got a lot of great, obviously, steak options. That's what they are. But I ended up getting I got a melt. No, it was not technically a melt, I guess. It was on a marble rye. Okay. I know people hear marble rye, they think Seinfeld, but no, it was really on rye bread, and it was a big burger. And all it was, and they did put some lettuce, tomato, pickle on the side if you wanted to add it to it. But all it was a burger with a big slab of cream cheese on it. And the cream cheese is cold. I mean, it wasn't it was starting to melt with it. It was actually very good. Like they call that I think they call it an Aspen burger. So that was unique. I will say I've been traveling a little bit more than I normally do. So people have not seen my face on the air much here the last few weeks, which might be a good or a bad thing, I guess, depending on who you ask. But I've had everything as far as I'll admit, I haven't been eating the best at times. I've had everything from, let's see, I had at the Beef House, they had a pecan chocolate chip pie. So I had a slice of that at a good price. In Columbus, we went to a peach cobbler joint. So they get peach cobbler with ice cream. It's warm. Of course, that's really good. Of course, plenty of coffee. People know I'm a coffee geek. Hey, I had something really good. I can't remember what they call it now, but ice cream with espresso over the top of it. Ooh, I'll tell you, man, it was pistachio almond ice cream with dark espresso. 2 shots of dark espresso. It was amazing. So, and I could go on and on. I mean, donuts and cinnamon rolls and, whatever else. So I feel your pain. I'm back into a sort of healthy routine now that I'm back home.
Yeah, I've locked down. But again, this is only day 3. So I've got a long way to go.
All right. Okay. Can we address it? Why is Iowa Albany at 5:00? Can we address that first?
Yeah, let's see.
Out of the gates. I get it. I mean, it's all TV, and it's all got to be. I know the big noon games are now, where college football lives, and certainly the Big Ten. But isn't Northwestern at Tulane a better primetime game? Why does ESPNU? Who's making the selection? I don't know what the order the order goes.
I wish I had it ingrained in my head. I read it this week because I had an idea what it was, but it might actually be on this page here. Fox gets the first 3 selections of the entire season.
Okay.
So they always select Ohio State and Michigan.
Oh, yeah, and that's right. It's season long. There's no way to break it all down.
And then they obviously selected Ohio State and Texas. I don't know what their third selection. And then it becomes this big alternating wheel between them, CBS, NBC. It goes on from there.
So that's why I said there's really no point in us looking at 1 week and saying, why isn't this game here? It should be here, because it's a season-long draft is what it is.
It is a season-long draft. There are some deals that are made. For example, last year, Fox, of course, wanted Ohio State, Oregon, but it was played on the West Coast, and they're not going to play at noon Eastern time. So they made some kind of swap with NBC to get a really good game, or maybe 2 in exchange for Ohio State, Oregon. And I guess something like that is is taking place in this schedule as well.
So they're literally trading draft picks.
Yeah,
virtually. That's hilarious.
And I heard and I read through an article, kind of skimmed through it, that kind of played out how this is a draft. The CBS guys, are in their war room, and the NBC guys and the Fox guys, and they're going back and forth. Yeah.
So I mean, I think of week one, Northwestern Tulane is the most interesting to me because you have the Brendan Sullivan game, but it probably doesn't drive the eyeballs that Iowa and Albany will drive. That's my guess.
It probably won't, which is crazy because in terms of a competitive game, that should be a really good game.
That's what I'm saying. But that's like Ohio State games. If Ohio State played, Prairie View A&M, it would probably get more views than, I'm trying to think of a good example, like a Utah versus Cal. It might actually get better views. So I think that's probably what's going to happen with Iowa. So they'll get the 5:00 game against Albany week one. Really, I'm intrigued by Colorado State at Washington. You get Utah at UCLA week one.
I love that game.
That's going to be a really interesting game. I mean, you have a lot of storylines there.
I just love that we've got a late night game. So that's going to be a 10 East or 10 local for you, 11 here. So that's going to be a late night game on Fox.
Yeah. And then Montana State is a very good FCS program. What did they do last year? Didn't they play somebody in the Big Ten last year and push them? No, not Big Ten. I'm sorry. They pushed someone else.
Am I mixing up Montana and Montana State? But one of them beat Washington about 3 years ago.
Okay. Maybe I'm mixing up Montana and
I thought it was Montana that won that game.
Okay. Well, Montana State beat New Mexico last year, which I only bring that up because that's an FCS over FBS. So Montana State did beat New Mexico last year. So people may be like, what the heck are you talking about? Well, again, FCS teams are not supposed to beat FBS teams, Mark.
In 2021, Montana, the Grizzlies upset Washington 13-7.
Montana State is always really good at that level. Not saying they're going to go out to Oregon and challenge them, but that'd be the equivalent of Iowa playing like a North Dakota or a South Dakota, which they've done, and those are challenging games.
Idaho pushed Oregon.
Yeah, they did. That was last year. Yeah. That was a weird game, and I think it brought it into question. I remember thinking maybe this Oregon team's just not as good as we thought, and of course they got their heads on straight and figured it out. But and then I mean, like I mentioned, Colorado State, Washington. There's not like besides the Utah UCLA game. There's like everybody's basically playing at home besides Northwestern, right? Scroll back up. You got FAU, Maryland. Texas, Ohio State is obviously the big noon game that week. Ball State, Purdue. And there's not any games above, right? The Thursday, Friday games are all home games for Big Ten schools other than that game at Arrowhead.
What is your thought? Because there is just an outcry among Ohio State fans about having to play this game at noon. They want a night game. Do you make some kind of differentiation between big games being played at night or during the day?
Okay. Let me explain where I stand on this. I guess I feel like I'm going in a time capsule going backwards because what I don't understand is why explain to me why Ohio State fans would be upset with this. Isn't Ohio State Michigan at noon every year?
Yes, but that's different.
Why is that different?
that's
why. It's the biggest game in college football and it's at noon. So why are we complaining about a game in the exact same time slot on the exact same network in the summer?
And they are complaining.
Is that why? It's because it's summer. They'd rather a night game in the summer. I don't understand that for a number of reasons. It's been like this for years. Fox has had the big noon game for years.
Yes.
And I transitioned myself as a college football fan years ago. I quit whining about this years ago because I hated when Fox got the contract for the big noon game, or they should say they started putting Big Ten games and they had this whole Big Ten big noon format. I hated it because I loved growing up watching the games on ABC with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. I mean,
and it's worse for your time zone. It's 11 a.m.
It is worse for my
Even
time
worse.
zone, but I'll say this: ever since I've been doing the big noon thing started well before, but since I've done the post game show with Don Patterson, I don't always enjoy night games. Like, I'm not 60 years old, but I'm not long away from 30. And no, just listen to me for a second. Just listen. I don't do well if I'm up until 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I used to be able to handle that, Mark. That really, I struggle with that. So will I do it? Yes. Do I like night games? Yes. Do I want 11 a.m.? No. My ideal would be probably what they're doing this year with Albany. I just wish that was a different game. I like 5 p.m. because at 5 p.m. at least you get the early games, you get part of the second games, most of the second games, and then hey, by the time that game is over, yeah, it's going to be 8:30, but I should be able to wrap up the post game show by 11 or 11:30, and that's decent for me. 5's perfect.
You realize that you're talking to someone who's got a few years on you, and we've been, you've had a good measure of knowledge of what my schedule looks like over the last 4 years.
Yeah, well, you're a machine. I don't know how you stay up as late as you do. I keep saying you need to bring back the night shows. Bring back more of the night shows.
That's not where I was headed with that.
Well, but that's where I'm headed, and that's what I miss, Mark. I miss being able to fall asleep hearing your callers.
Now, tell me this: when you're watching Iowa play in Albany, how much do you drift to other? Because again, I'll make a caveat for Iowa. I think Iowa is very different in this way, that the point spread does not equate to the probability that they're going to win. Like, they have played many games over the last several seasons where they're only like a 4-point favorite, but I'm extremely confident that they're going to win. They're just going to win by much.
It's because of the style of play. Yeah.
And so they could play in Albany and it could be not uncomfortably close, but 20-7 in the third quarter. It's not 51-0. So when they are able to stomp on some people like they did early last year, they did a few games last year. How much do you tend to veer your focus to other games, and especially if there's really good games on?
This might shock you. Not a second.
Really?
I don't change the channel for a second. I mean, in general, I'm not saying I've never have if there's something, but I am the type of person that takes, like, I've always been the type of guy before the show, during the show, like since the show and its inception, like, I want to watch every single play. And if I miss a couple of plays, then I want to go back and see what those plays were. Even if they were like, hey, a run for 8 yards, I want to see how that run happened. That's just how I am. So yeah, what games is that going to overlap? I mean, I guess.
We were only looking at the Big Ten.
Yeah, but I mean, in general, I don't really care that much what's going on in other conferences at that point.
Okay.
I mean, what other major game? Isn't Texas Ohio State the best game week 1, or is Notre Dame? Who does Notre Dame play?
Notre Dame plays Miami on Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah, isn't that probably the biggest game on Saturday? Is Texas Ohio State? It's got to be.
I think it would be the biggest game of the year in some respects. No, talking about non-conference games.
Well, no, it might be the biggest game of the year in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, Michigan fans. I know that.
And we have different tastes there. So yeah, you're a little bit more Big Ten focused than I am.
Yeah.
So
listen, I've told you how much I don't relish the fact that I miss so many more games now with this show. I appreciate the fact that the show exists and that it's people watch, but yeah, I watch less football now than I used to. Kennesaw State. Why is Indy I have some respect for what Signetti did, but why are they playing? Last year they play what, Western Illinois last year, or was that 2 years ago? Who'd they play last year that they beat up on? Why do you have to schedule the worst of the worst in the FCS? We're not the FCS. We're not the FCS. We are not the SEC. Like, they're not supposed to be scheduling games against, Leanne Womack. Like, that's
yeah.
That's frustrating to me. And in Northwestern State, what is this, basketball? Like, come on. Why is Minnesota playing Northwestern State? If I was the Big Ten Network, I'd put it on BTN Plus just to punish them for a stupid non-conference schedule.
Yeah, that's bad.
But Iowa State has nothing to compete against in the noon slot other than Illinois and Duke, which is a decent matchup, and it is on the road. Illinois is probably going to be the favorite, right?
Yes.
Oh, James says James says that Kennesaw is FBS. Are you kidding me?
They moved up last year.
Why? They're not good.
No.
They're not good. Why are teams moving up? Like, I understand if you're good and you move up. Why are teams moving up?
And that used to be the criteria. If you saw that a team was moving up, you knew that they were one of the best.
Yeah, James Madison. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Run down the list.
Several schools that have moved up, it was just seemed arbitrary.
Now, was Old Dominion good when they moved up? Because they've turned into a decent FBS program since they moved.
They have?
Didn't they make a bowl game last year?
Yeah, I think they went 6-7.
Well, that's decent. If you're a crappy FCS team and you end up being middle of the pack in the FBS, then I say that's a pretty cataclysmic jump.
If you say so.
But yeah, Kennesaw State is FBS. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. And why is Missouri State moving up? Why is Delaware moving up? How many teams do we need in the FBS? Are there teams dropping out of the FBS? Is that what's happening?
No.
Okay. Well,
no, it's just being added to.
Great. Fabulous.
And unfortunately, since I've got a new laptop, I've lost all sorts of bookmarks because one of my favorite sites is a site that you just click on the team and you can go throughout the entire history of the program and with all the scores. Yeah. I just wanted to go to Old Dominion. So yeah, Iowa State is by far the best game of week 2. And then, yeah, I'm intrigued by Illinois going to Duke, a team that went 9-4 last year. So that could be a challenge. Oklahoma State, that looks like a brand matchup to a certain extent, but they're not good.
By the way, real quick, just to respond to Aiden. Respond to Aiden. I have not talked about Albany. That's a horrendous schedule. The fact that Iowa scheduled that game against Albany is ridiculous. Let me just say it's ridiculous. That's all I have to say. I don't know why it was scheduled that way. That is not on par with how Iowa has approached non-conference scheduling. Say what you want about Iowa non-conference scheduling. It's boring. It's predictable. They only play 3 non-conference games. One is locked up with Iowa State, and your boy there on the screen. And then they usually play 2 FBS opponents. If they don't play 2, they play an FBS opponent and a strong FCS opponent. I'm not saying you got to play South Dakota State or North Dakota State, but play somebody. Play a North Dakota. Play a South Dakota. Play a, I don't know, somebody else. I don't know that I want to see Montana or Montana State or Eastern Washington, those teams. But there are better. Incarnate Word has been actually ever since Cam Ward was there, they've been decent. I don't know why they're scheduling the likes of Albany, Northwestern State, and Kennesaw State. It's almost like they're retreating to what the SEC has done. Actually, Grambling State's not a bad that's a good program. That's a good HBCU program.
Well, I just want to clarify what I mean when I say Iowa has a boring schedule. This is what I mean. First of all, I made those statements back when they were in the Western Division. So we knew exactly who they were playing in the West. And then there were obviously the 3 games that rotated in the East. So the Big Ten schedule was more cut and dry, number one. Number two, I was not faulting Iowa for a boring schedule. I just was stating that we know who they're, yes. You could run to all sorts of teams across the country and be like, I wonder who they're playing non-conference this year. But Iowa, you knew it's going to be Iowa State and then 2 lesser teams. And I didn't expect them to schedule anyone else, but knew that their one big game out of conference was going to be the same team. Yeah, they're James just kind of boxed into that schedule.
Yeah, see, James says they were supposed to play FAU. I don't remember that. If that's the case, then okay, I don't know what happened. He says they dropped out. Okay, yeah, FAU would have been a better matchup. Who is FAU playing? Why did they drop out? Who? FAU playing someone else this week? They played someone week 1. Who was the Big Ten team they were playing week 1?
Probably Maryland. I think it was Maryland.
So maybe there's got to be something where they didn't want to play 2 Big Ten teams or something. Yeah, they played Maryland. Week 2, they played Florida Atlantic. So I have no idea. But no, that's week 1. You're right. So that would just been they just picked Maryland over. Wait a minute. Week 1, I'm getting the dates confused. Week 1 is the 6th. I was calling.
No. Week 1 is the 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm okay. We were talking about Albany, but we had week 2 up on the screen. That's why I got confused. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know why Maryland got the nod ahead of Florida Atlantic, if that's the case. But yeah, like Albany and UMass. Like I'm not gonna be defending Iowa's schedule this year because that's atrocious. It's atrocious, and listen, it's not a good look for a coach who's about to pass the all-time leader in wins in the conference. And I'm not saying Kirk, when he gets there, like, oh, because they played these 2 cupcakes to get there. But I'm just saying, like, they win week 1, he'll tie, correct?
Yes.
And then they may lose week 2, and then he may surpass the record against UMass. Now think about that. You tie the record against Albany, and you make a new record. You set the record against UMass. Not a great schedule. And I'm not saying that it's not reasonable why Iowa did it. I don't know the reasons behind why FAU got dropped and why UMass, but UMass has been historically in the last 10 years one of the worst programs in all of the FBS. They've been horrible. You talk about Iowa's offense, UMass has been right there with Iowa with offensive play for a long time now. And I mean, Albany, the Danes. I never have owned a Great Dane. Okay. But that is not a program that I want to see in Kinnick on August 30th. But I digress.
I am only going to defend Iowa. I'm going to be a Hawkeye apologist this one time. Well, I have been many times. In that, I don't like to see them play those 2 games either. However, we have teams in this conference, the likes of Penn State. They're playing no one.
Well, who do they play? Will they play week 1? They played somebody decent.
No, they're not.
Yes, I just saw it. Go
Penn
back up.
State?
Yeah, no, Penn State. They play Nevada. They play Nevada.
No. No.
Iowa played Nevada a few years ago.
Yeah, I know. But you guys play Iowa State. So at least there's that game.
Well, who's their 3rd game? Who are their 3 games? You said Villanova.
It's awful.
And Nevada. Who's the other one?
And some other nothing. Penn State's playing no one. Maryland plays no one. Rutgers plays no one. And I believe Minnesota plays no one.
Penn State is playing.
I'm sorry. Minnesota plays Cal.
Penn State's playing Nevada, FIU, and Villanova.
Terrible.
Maryland is playing. Let me find Maryland's real quick.
And this is when I'd like to have more impact and influence and authority and all those good things on the internet, because all I can do is make a video and shake my finger at Penn State and say their AD should be ashamed.
Well, it seems like a concerted effort. Like, say what you want about why Iowa scheduled Albany, and that was a backup plan. It seems like now it appears to me, just anecdotally, looking through all these schedules, that the Big Ten has determined, whether it's behind closed doors or not, that they're going to start playing SEC level FCS teams. As much as I've criticized the SEC, what I'm seeing here is a lot of the crap teams. They may not be playing them late in the season, but there's a lot of crap FCS programs being scheduled and crap FBS programs being scheduled.
Well, that's what you're focused on, and I get it. That's part of the argument. I'm more focused on the lack of big games. Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma, Iowa, Iowa State, USC, Notre Dame. Everyone should play that type of game. Illinois, Duke is fine.
Maryland's playing Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and Towson.
Give us Indiana's schedule.
Indiana, they ought to be ashamed because they played Western last year. They play Old Dominion, who was not FBS a few years ago. They play Kennesaw State, who was not FBS last year, and they play Indiana State, who is not FBS this year.
Terrible.
What are you doing? They're playing 3 teams that 5 years ago, none of them were in the FBS. I've never heard of anything like that. That's incredible. That's incredible. I might do a video on that. That's incredible.
Yeah, do a video on that. I argued our Indiana guy because he was trying to make all sorts of claims that I was being unfair. So he popped on, and our Indiana guy is amazing. Alec, you do a great job, but he was overmatched in this argument. He should have never taken it on.
What's your boy Jeffrey say about Indiana?
I have no idea. Not
All
talked
right.
to him for a long time, but our host Alec, yeah, he caught me railing on Indiana, and he
Well,
jumped on to defend them, and there
there's
was
nothing
nothing
to
to defend.
defend, and they played a horrible schedule last year in the non-conference. Let's not forget that was part of the playoff
Yeah,
controversy.
exactly.
They played Western Illinois, Charlotte, and FIU last year.
Yeah, pathetic.
Yeah.
And the defense is apparently that, well, we didn't know we were going to be this good. I don't care if you're the worst team in the Big Ten. You should be playing someone.
Like I said, I don't ever remember a schedule where you have in the Big Ten where you play 3 non-conference teams, all of which were not even in the FBS 4 years prior.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Wisconsin's going to Alabama. That's not an easy task.
That's a stupid decision, in my opinion. I don't know why you schedule that.
Why?
Why? What is tell me where they benefit scheduling a game at Alabama?
Exposure.
Wisconsin needs exposure in the Big Ten.
Not in the Big Ten nationally. If they go down to Alabama and win that game.
Yeah. If they do that, that's the problem. Go down and win it. Hey, BC, Michigan State is an intriguing one. Didn't we just see that game?
They played in
At BC
Hill last year. Aiden Childs threw an interception in the end zone to end the game.
Yep, close game, good game.
Yeah.
And then UCLA at UNLV is sort of interesting, just because it's a road game, and UNLV lost their offensive coordinator in the offseason to, I believe,
lost their head coach in the offseason as well.
Okay, they lost their head coach,
but their new head coach, Dan Mullen. Say what you will, the guy's
he knows how to coach.
But yes, he knows how to coach. Great run at Mississippi State and Florida, and they're paying him like a Power 4 coach. And so UCLA gets off to Utah and UNLV,
and Michigan at Oklahoma. That will be a fun game in Norman.
The Akron at Nebraska game reminds me of something I caught on a Nebraska show a few weeks ago that they were actually saying. So the Scott Frost era started with a game against Akron that was canceled due to weather. They were actually making the point, trying to make a case that had they played Akron, and of course would have won the game, that could have completely changed the trajectory of Nebraska football.
The Zips, Mark, the Zips.
And so I immediately looked up Scott Frost's record and said, absolutely, he would not have gone 16-31. He would have gone 17-31.
Yep. Okay, so and then you have let's see, so week of September 13th, Big Ten conference play starts, right, with Oregon Northwestern. You mentioned Wisconsin and Alabama. And then a bunch of crap games from Central Michigan at Michigan, the Houston Christian at Nebraska. Well, who is Nebraska scheduling? I mean, I know they got the Cincinnati game, which is basically a de facto home game, but their schedule's not that strong.
No.
And that's not a good FBS program right now. Norfolk State at Rutgers. I'm telling you, Mark, have you talked about this, about how the Big Ten is scheduling weaker FCS teams? Please talk about that. This cannot be anecdotal. We're going week after week, and we're talking about Big Ten they're not scheduling North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State. They're not doing that anymore.
It might be in response to the SEC.
Who is playing Montana State? Didn't we say somebody who's playing Montana State though, week 1?
Who was that? Oregon.
Kudos to Oregon. I know Oregon is a power and they'll probably beat Montana State, but at least they're going to go the FCS route. They're going to play someone good. USC Purdue should be I would be very surprised, even though they're crossing several time zones. That could be a tricky game just because of that. But
sure,
Purdue, man, I don't know.
Yeah, this week is terrible.
That's a rough week for the conference.
The 2 conference games are not good. Again, USC Purdue has a chance of being a decent game. Minnesota Cal, late night.
USC Purdue could also be a total thrashing. Like I could see USC going up there and winning by 30.
Yeah.
Or more. This is something Iowa plays to start the season. They play 3 night games in 4 weeks, and the one game that's not at night is Iowa State. Now think about that. Albany, UMass, and Rutgers are all at night. I mean, who's drawing the short straw there? Now, I know some people will say that's great. They're at night. Yippee. And again, like I said earlier, I historically like night games. But one of the worst night experiences was that game against Nevada when it finished at like 3 a.m. That was one of the worst experiences for several reasons.
When you get a Friday night Iowa game, then you get Saturday to focus on other college football games.
I do like Friday night. Yep. Friday night's good. And that's a tricky game. That is a tricky game at Rutgers on Friday night. Iowa's done historically fairly well on Friday nights, although last year lost to UCLA, but we know they typically beat Nebraska on Fridays. Remember, they went out to the East Coast and thrashed Maryland back in, what was that, 2021? 2020? Yeah, 2021. And I don't even know the last time they lost to Rutgers. They went out there and played a close game a few years ago. I don't know that was a Friday, but it may have been a Friday. But yeah, when was that game?
I don't think so.
Okay, it was a Saturday then. I think it was another Cooper DeJean theatrics win. Or maybe it was Jack Campbell. One of those guys made a huge play to seal the deal like they always do.
Their history against Rutgers is basically, I don't know that they've given up 100 yards in total offense to anybody that wears a Rutgers uniform.
Now, Shiano's a defensive-minded coach, but isn't that interesting that, like Iowa, they don't shut people out, but the only shutouts I can think of recently are against Rutgers. They shut them out 21-0. Didn't they? 20 or 21-0 a few years ago?
Zip,
22-zip.
22-zip, and they beat them 30-0 at home.
That's
maybe
right.
About 4 or 5 years ago.
And that was in the midst of horrific offense play. Yeah.
Now what we're going to see, not to cut you off, Corey, what we're going to see, I believe, for the rest of the schedules, not going to be a complete schedule. It's just whatever the major networks filled out, what they grabbed in this draft.
So Michigan, Nebraska is a marquee game, CBS. Purdue, Notre Dame is, again, unless Purdue just shocks people, that's going to be a rough one. And then Washington, that's a game at Wazoo that could be interesting. That's a CBS night game. So does CBS, I mean, maybe you don't have insight on that, but they're not always going to have a...
No, they are not. Did Corey leave us? I've got another window up here. Yes, Corey froze on us. Unfortunately. Hopefully, Corey will recognize that, but we'll finish out the schedule here. So the next Saturday, the final Saturday in September, Oregon and Penn State, obviously a marquee game. And then we've got the other two conference games. I don't know why they're listed there. What makes them... I don't know why they've listed Indiana, Iowa, and USC, Illinois, because we don't know when they're going to be played or on what network. And then the rest of the schedule is yet to be determined, aside from the Friday night games. Rutgers, Washington, they played last year. That came down to a last-second field goal missed by Washington. And Nebraska, Minnesota on a Friday night. And then we've got some Friday night games with Northwestern taking on USC. Minnesota, Oregon's a nice Friday night game. That is a really nice Friday night game as well. Welcome back.
I don't know if you got the end of what I said, but what did I say?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, I don't really know what I said, but...
I was just pointing out that for the rest of the schedule, we had that 1 week of games in late September where there were the three Big Ten games that you saw, and the same thing the next week. And then the rest of the schedule, the only games we know. So Ohio State, Michigan is going to play on Fox at noon. And then other than that, these Friday night Big Ten games, which I love. And they're usually not great matchups, but Minnesota, Oregon, it's kind of interesting.
Give the viewers some insight. Give me some insight into how did the like that Iowa at USC game. How does that work as it relates to the same thing with Indiana? They have an or in the scheduling. So how does that work with the draft? Either 2 p.m. Central Time or 2:30. Why don't we have a network for that? Like,
Yeah,
doesn't
I don't even know why that game's listed and none of
it's
the other games for the week are listed.
it's listed on the release that Iowa sent out too. It just for both of those, it says like Indiana's 11 a.m. or 2:30 or 3. Well, okay, so I just
That
would like to know the logistics of how that happens. How do they know it's going to be one of those 3 time slots, but not know the network?
I
I'm assuming
can't.
maybe ESPN or not ESPN. It won't be as Fox. Was it Fox that they're waiting to figure out if they want it on Fox or on FS1 or on Big Ten? That's got to be what
Well,
it is,
yeah,
right?
but they're doing the same thing with every other game that week. They're going to wait until, like, we've gotten the entire
Yeah,
schedule that we've received, and now for the rest
that's
of the season, we will receive the rest of the schedule the Monday, not prior to, but the week before. So, like 11 days before, we will get the kickoff
yeah.
time in the
So
network.
what's the point when you have 3 possible kick times of even
Yeah,
releasing that? I don't know.
yeah. I don't know why that's the only game. If they listed the entire schedule, they would all say like noon or 3:30 or or
Yeah. I should have, you know what I should have done, Mark? We should do this next year. We should do a breaking news schedule release and like every week just list every game and be like, this game has been scheduled for either noon, 2, 2:30, 3:30, 5, or 7. TV TBD. Would that'd be ruffle some people's feathers if they clicked on it? Clickbait.
I know our buddy Jackson is all over this stuff. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Legitimately, to do a schedule release show right when it comes out. And then of course Black Friday, Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana, Purdue.
Yep.
There we go.
And Big Ten football championship game presented by Discover on December 6th inside Indy. You got any early predictions for that? I'm gonna guess you're gonna say Penn State, Ohio State.
Could be, could be.
You said it's more wide open than you can recall.
Oh, I do believe that. I do believe that. I think that Ohio State, Penn State are the best teams, but not by much. And then you got a tier of Michigan, Oregon, and then Iowa's right in there with USC, Illinois. I think it's a great race. Could be a great race. Should be. We'll save our Nebraska hit for next week. Got plenty of time to deal with that. We do appreciate everyone being here. And Corey, since you've taken so much time off, at some point you're going to get back to work, right?
Yeah. I'm just sitting back eating chocolates and reading the newspaper, living the life. That's what I've been doing. No, we got some good interviews coming up and we got content coming up. So a lot of behind the scenes stuff happening that people are not aware of. As you know, a lot comes into making things smooth in the fall and whatnot, but we'll still have coverage this month. Oh, Levi's gonna, I think he means he'll come over to my channel and post some crap. Is that what he's talking about? He says he'll fill in and faithfully I think he just mistyped there. Faithfully full my absence.
Hey, anytime you and Levi show up anywhere, that's good.
Oh Lord,
good debate.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's coming. That's going to be very, very soon. We're going to start. When are we going to start doing opponent breakdowns, Mark?
We can start anytime. Yeah, it is about that time. I kind of forgot. I'm glad you reminded me.
We need to start doing that at some point.
I am not quite as buttoned up as I used to be when it comes to all this stuff.
Yep.
All right, folks. Make it on back next Tuesday at 4:30 Central. And bring a friend or two with you. Let's build up this audience headed toward Big Ten Media Days in about 6 weeks. And we will see you next Tuesday.